My mom's dog, Punky, rest in peace, was a very sweet, loving dog. She was an emotional support dog, but trained to be a service dog for PTSD before she lost her leg. I had never seen her get aggressive with anyone in the entire 12 years she lived. She never growled or nipped anyone, and she had no sense of smell. So she loved all animals and people, a real gentle giant among our little terriers at 60 pounds. What I'm getting at here is that her barking at something and being aggressive was so wildly uncharacteristic that I only saw it once. I, 11 female, was at home with my siblings, 2-year-old brother and 6-year-old sister. My then stepdad was at work, and my mom ran up to the gas station to grab a pack of cigarettes. It was only a mile or two away from us. For reference, we lived in a 2-bedroom trailer in the middle of the woods on a dead-end road. At the time, Hans, you had to really make an effort to get down our road, find our house, navigate down our rickety driveway, and find the door. I'm sitting at the computer having a grand time watching YouTube videos when all of a sudden, all of our dogs, 2 Boston Terriers and 1 Chihuahua, perk up, bark a few times, and start investigating down the hall. My siblings were napping in the bedroom at the end of the hall at the time, so I figured they just stirred and scared the dogs. But then, Punky sits up, suddenly stands on the couch and puffs her chest out. Her ears are perked up, her first standing on ends and her tail straight up, and then she barks loudly. I mean, the bark booms through the living room and echoes around. And all of a sudden, she lunges off the couch and goes tearing down the hallway. I'm already on edge because I don't think I've ever heard her bark. She's a Bassini mix, so her bark is more of a banging sound. But this was a big, loud alert. Bark, I stand up and go to look down the hallway, ready to fight off what I'm assuming is a shadow monster in the hallway based on how the dogs are acting. But then I hear it 3 knocks. We didn't get visitors because of how weird our house was location-wise, so my 11-year-old mind had no clue what to do here. The only people who showed up were family and they didn't knock, so I slowly walked towards the door. The knock drew the attention of the dogs, and they came running back down the hallway, all except for Punky, and I felt better with our 3 yappy dogs in the living room with me, even if they were all the size of New York City sewer rats. I opened the door just a bit, and standing on our porch is the sketchiest man I think I've ever seen. I could still picture him perfectly. He was a really thin, taller man with dark hair and a sunken face, bags under his eyes, and this half-managed hair, sort of like he just gave it a quick brush and then figured it was good enough. Everything about him seemed a little too thin, a little too shallow, and his clothes were all weird too. They were nice, but like fake nice, you know, like a clean, newer-looking t-shirt and new jeans, but he had what looked like a suit jacket on. All his clothes were dark, despite the fact that it was summer in Texas, and the weather was definitely in the hundreds that day. He also had this plain, unlabeled bottle in his hand. It looked like the label had been covered up and taped over. I stare up at him in confusion because I definitely don't know this man, and I ask what he wants. He smiles at me in this way. That's fake, like this exaggerated and forced grin, and he speaks in the same voice retail workers do. "Hey there, kiddo, I'm trying to sell this here carpet cleaner," and he shakes a bottle at me. "Mind if I come in to show you how good it works?" Alarms are going off in my head because he just seems so off. Looking back with an adult perspective, The fact that he didn't ask if my parents were home is unnerving, because he probably knew they weren't. That's why he was here in the first place. I should have told him to get off our property, that I'd have to go get my mom or something. Except what I did say, but I didn't. Instead, I just shook my head and said, "No, we don't have carpet." Well, it works on other things, and he took a big step towards the door and shook the bottle at me. I started to freak out and think to close the door. But the thing is, our front door didn't even lock. A small town, hard to access home. We never needed one, so that's basically useless. I'm sure there's something very wrong about to happen, and I'm terrified as I think about what to do in the few seconds I think I have before it does happen, when all of a sudden I hear it. Punky had crept up from the hallway, lowered towards the grounds with her teeth bared, and snarled like she was Pharaoh. She had slobber just dripping from her mouth. Her ears were down and she was ready to pounce. The guy hears it too. And as I look towards Punky, she tries to lunge past me, and I just barely catch her with my leg as she tries her hardest to duck past me and attack this guy. He freaks out and runs off the porch without another word, looking down the driveway as I left Punky out along with the rest of our dogs, and they start chasing him. Our small dogs chase him down the driveway and stop about halfway, barking and jumping about. But Punky stops just on the porch and watches him with her ears perked, just staring in the distance until he disappears. I swear I saw someone join up with him running when he got onto the road the second he disappeared. Punky's entire body language changed, and she went back to being the sweet dog. I knew no barking or growling, just laying around mouth and throat covered in slobber. Still, I realized my siblings are still down the hall and ran to check on them, and when I got to the bedroom they were still sleeping soundly, but the bedroom window was wide open. The curtains pushed all to one side, and the items on the dresser in front of the window were all shoved around. Somebody had tried to climb through the window. No doubt in my mind about it. From what I can gather, the bedroom window is visible from the couch where Punky was sleeping, so I think someone was trying to climb through the window before Punky went after them and scared them off. The man at the door was meant to distract me. They definitely didn't expect Punky, a bigger dog, because most of the time she was with my mom inside while our small dogs were the ones that saw the public eye. More often, I don't know what they intended to do, but after my mom got home, she took all of us to my aunt's house, and on our way there, we saw the men walking up someone else's driveway. Men, plural, because we watched the second one split off to wait by the road. In the summertime, my beachfront town is a lot of fun. On the weekends, we go to the beach or someone's pool during the day, and to one of the beach bars at night. I'm getting a little older though, and a lot of my guy friends that I used to go out with on the weekends are no longer single and don't really look to do that anymore, so it's harder to make plans these days than it used to be one time when I was out with my friends. Though these two guys approached my friends and I at the bar, being friendly, because they overheard our conversation and joined in. They looked like they were maybe 8 years older than us, in their mid-30s. They were on the shorter side, but seemed cool enough to hang around. Their names were Alec and James. They ended up bar hopping with us that night. Alec left before James, who stayed late into the night with us. He seemed to like me the most because he would talk to me the most. Eventually, my friends wanted to go home, and so did I, and James seemed disappointed, like he wanted to stay out until the bars closed. I told him we'd all chill again soon, and then we left the following weekend. None of my friends wanted to go out. So when I was trying to find plans, I get a text from James. He asked what I'm up to tonight, and I said no. Plans? What are you guys doing? He said we should go to this beach bar. I figured why not. I needed plans anyway, and him and Alex seemed all right. Last time, he offered to pick me up, so I took him up on that offer. When he pulled up to my house at like 9 or 10, I went for the back seat expecting Alec to be in the passenger seat. But when I opened the door, he said, "Sit in the front." It was just James in the car on the way to the bar. I asked James if Alec or anyone else would be meeting up. He said probably I wasn't aware it was going to be just him. But whatever, he suggested we go to this dive bar first to pregame a bit before going to the beach bar, which had a dance floor. I said sure. He brought us to a hole-in-the-wall bar. It was really dark in there with a moody red glow. He ordered us a few rounds of drinks. I already had a couple shots before leaving my house. So, after these drinks, I was feeling pretty drunk already. At one point, I had to go to the bathroom, and when I got back, he had 2 more drinks on the counter for us. I didn't even finish my previous one yet. I was shocked he was buying all these drinks for us. I figured it was an older person thing after drinking this last drink, is where my memory completely went black. The next thing I remember was waking up in a pitch black room. I was on the floor. I felt around for my phone in my pockets but couldn't find it. I stood up and held my arms out in front of me until I felt the wall. I started feeling around the wall for a light switch. I found it, finally, and flicked it on. I found myself inside of a small concrete floor room with a hot water heater and various household cleaning objects like a mop and bucket. There's a closed door in the room. I was beyond confused and absolutely terrified. Where was I? I slowly opened the door, which led to another pitch black room. A little bit of the light from the small room leaked into the other room. I could tell now it was a carpeted basement. I saw a few pieces of furniture in the room. I couldn't find a light switch though, so I had to make my way through the dark basement, banging into things. I was looking for the stairs when I heard movement behind me, like someone getting up off a couch. Then the familiar voice of James saying my name. I screamed and turned to face the darkness. I could only see the outline of his body across the room. He said, "Calm down. It's not what you think. You got too drunk at the bar, so I brought you back here." All I could think to say was, "Why did you put me in that room on the floor? And where are my belongings?" My voice felt weak. He came closer to me and said, "I have all your stuff upstairs. Just relax and lay down." I told him, "I'm leaving. Just bring me upstairs to my stuff, and I'm going home," he said in a slightly more menacing tone. "No, you're not leaving." This was where I threatened him physically, and he responded in a way implying that he had some kind of weapon and he would use it. If I tried to leave, his claim was that I was too drunk to drive. I kept saying, "I'm calling an Uber." He then said, "Relax, I'm going to get you a glass of water and you're going to go back to sleep." I didn't know what to do in this unheard of, terrifying situation. I didn't know what he was planning to do to me, but this whole situation was a giant red flag. He walked past me and went up the stairs. When he got to the top, I heard him unlock the basement door with a key, then open it and shut the door and lock it. I looked for some kind of blunt object I could use as a weapon, but there was literally nothing. I had no choice but to sneak up to the top of the stairs and wait behind the door for him. A long while passed, maybe 5 minutes, before I heard the sound of the door unlocking, and I was instantly ready to attack the second the door opened. I pushed him to the ground and had him in a chokehold. I yelled at him, "Where's my phone and wallet?" seriously choking him. I let up a bit so he could breathe and speak. He said, "On the kitchen table." I asked if he had any weapons on him. He said a switchblade in his pocket. I reached for it out of his pocket and switched it open. He then explained the best he could with his throat under my arm, that he was only looking out for me. I got up off of him, went to the kitchen, grabbed my belongings from the table, and quickly left the house. I called my brother, who's also my roommate, right away, and he picked up. Having been woken up from the call, I explained everything and asked him to pick me up. He came right away. The next day, I went to urgent care to get tested, and Renault was found in my urine. It was confirmed that he roofied me. I then spoke to a lawyer and have since filed a civil suit against James, which is still in progress, and we're building a case. However, there is no clear-cut proof that James was actually the one to roofie me, or that he had any illegal intentions afterward. However, I do believe that I have a good case, considering that he left me on the floor and hid my belongings upstairs. I still, to this day, don't know what his end goal was. I don't even like to think about whether he did anything weird to me while I was... There's a nice, quiet, scenic creek not far from my house. I like to drive my kayak up to it every once in a while on the weekends. In the summer, this one particular weekend was one of those weekends. The weather was perfect. Sunny and 70s, I'd kayak down this creek a bunch of times, and never had I seen anyone else kayaking it. That's part of the reason I like it, because I'm a very reserved person, and I like to do things myself, preferably with privacy. So I set out on the kayak not far from where I parked my car, which is some gravelly dirt parking area right off the road. There was one other car that pulled in a few minutes after I did, which was unusual. I'd never seen any other cars except my own here. 20 minutes into my kayaking, someone came out from the woods ahead of me, coming up on the left and approached the edge of the water. He stopped and waved at me and smiled. He put his hands on his hips and greeted me. It seemed he had an expectation for me to stop and chat. I instantly knew I didn't like his smile, but my mother raised me to be polite to everybody, so I stopped paddling and smiled and greeted him back. There was an awkward pause where he was just nodding his head with his closed lip smile, and I had to break the silence by saying it's a beautiful day out. He nodded his head and said, "Yup," then asked where I'm from. I made something up and said, "From up north, just visiting." He clearly lacked the ability to hold any sort of conversation. And that's coming from me. He's not the most social person myself, so I wanted to just move along. I told him to have a great rest of his day and continued onward down the river. Never in a million years was I expecting what happened next to happen. I turned when I heard a snap of a stick or something from not far behind me. There, in the not-so-far distance, was the guy hiding behind a couple trees, seemingly following me. I was disturbed and uncomfortable, like he was clearly trying to not be seen. I was scared to call him out in fear of how he might respond, so I pretended not to notice him and continued to kayak down the creek. I would continue to side glance every so often to see if he was still following me, and I had never wanted to see someone else in the water. So much in my life, I took out my phone to try to call my dad or my brother for help, but of course I had no cell reception out there still. Instead of being followed and probably attacked, I decided to stop in my place, turn around, and threaten to call the police if he didn't stop following me. The man just stood in place behind another big tree, though he was clear as day. There, I then decided to fake call the cops. I raised my phone in the air at the man. I said, "I see you there, I'm calling them now." I then proceeded to fake a phone call pretending like I'm talking to the police. The man started to walk away deeper into the woods. It seemed to have worked. I turned around immediately and started kayaking back up the way I came as fast as I possibly could. I would constantly look over my shoulders until I got back to where I launched the kayak. I made it safely. I checked my whole surroundings before stepping out of the water and carrying my kayak back to my car. The other car in the little parking area was still there, but I made a disturbing discovery that may have saved my life. Up until this point, everything that happened could have maybe been explained away. However, I noticed broken glass near the back of my car, and the back passenger side window wasn't there anymore. It had been shattered. I didn't step 1 foot closer to my car. I stayed hidden in the woods and checked if I had bars. Now that I was closer to the road, I did, and I called 911. Successfully, I reported the whole incident and the broken window, and I stated I was scared. I was still being followed, waiting for the police to arrive. Felt like the longest, most tense moment of my life. He dragged on far too long. But when they pulled into the dirt area, I finally came out from the woods and waved at them. I pointed to the car, and 2 police officers came out and approached the car where they found him. The man from the woods waiting in the back seat of my car. Hiding, waiting for me to enter my car to grab me. It was beyond satisfying to see him arrested. He definitely wasn't smiling anymore. I looked at him as it almost seems like he was avoiding looking at me as he was taken to the police car. I'm happy the man was so stupid that he thought I wouldn't notice shattered glass all over the side of my car.